Last week we did a major part of this mitzvah, the mitzvah Reish Lamed Hey Chomesh Ushloshim U'Masayim, the din of Eved K'na'ani. And we assume that the mitzvah is to be in the state that the Eved K'na'ani should remain Eved K'na'ani. There's no kiyum; it's only a shrano, it's only a din. And the din that the Eved is Yotze b'Shem v'Ayin is also part of the shrana. It's that there's all mem tavodu except when there's Shem v'Ayin, something like that. And the Rambam quotes the Mon Gittin that there's an Aseh called Meshach Avdoi Oiva Baseh Shenema Tichsiv Lo Tavod. So I don't know if it's a chiddush or not, that there is an Aseh in a Shran also, and I think that follows the discussion that we assume that a Shrana, the Torah tells laws, and the assumption is you should abide by the laws. So when there's a set of laws, there's an assumed Aseh. So if there's an assumed Aseh, you should abide by the laws. So doing the opposite of that, it could be an Aseh. I don't know if there's a big chiddush in that. Okay. The issue over here is exactly how in under what circumstances we are allowed to meshach. There's a lot of strange things going on here. I'm not sure if it's exactly connected here, but let's see. So let's go like this. What's the heter to meshachrer Eved K'na'ani l'tzorech mitzvah? The Gemara in Gittin tells us the following: Lamed Chesam Beis Gufa Omer Yehuda Omer Shmuel Kol Meshach Av Over Basei Shneim Elohim Boim Tavod Meisvei Maise Bo Eliezer Shenichnas Beis HaKnesset Lemotz Asor V'Shichre Avdoi V'Shlimu Asor. So the Gemara answers mitzvah shiny. Ram Zavodim also quotes this in Perek Tes Halacha Vav. We shown him accept an assumption, or they make an assumption that the Isa Shichro, although the Isa say, well, Mitavodus and Isa Deraisa. So you come out with a very odd thing that you're allowed to violate an Isa say in order, say violate, we soon violate it, in order to be Mashal Maminian, which sounds very odd. So let's see the approaches. There's three approaches to this. The Rosh in Brachos, Perek Zayin, Siman Chof, he's of the opinion that the heter of Shichro Eved K'na'ani is an issue of Dechiyah. What does that mean? That the Aseh of Shicho, the Isa Aseh of Shicho, is nitche through a different Aseh, which is, let's say, mitzvah derabim. That's what he's talking about there. Even it's a mitzvah derabonim, but it's a mitzvah derabim, so somehow it's derech deraisa. And this is based on the sugim brachos, and Mem Zayin Beis that's mefurish that the het is mishum asay derabim. Even though the Gemara Gittin just says mishum mitzvah, but the Gemara brachos asay derabim, and the Rosh is working like that. And l'chayr this is mysterious sugyas, because the Gemara in brachos seems to say that the het is because of mitzvah derabim. And the Gemara in Gittin is mashmeni mitzvah. And the Rosh doesn't deal with this. It just says that the quote, it's a shtickle in brachos, and the Gemara brachos says mitzvah derabim. So he says that even a mitzvah derabon, which a mitzvah derabim, can be derech deraisa of an isa say of le'olam b'em tavod, of shichur. Aside, the Gemara in Gittin tells us that, see, here at the moment, it's a there's no obligation to free the Eben or to mashlim minyan. If you want to mashlim minyan, we say allowed to. But in another case, the Gemara says we obligate you to free the Eben Kanaini. When there's a milsa d'isur, the Gemara in Gittin Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, Hahi Amsa, the harvest Pumbedisa, there was certain Shifra Kanainis in the area of Pumbedisa. The Havakol Ma'abde for Inche Isura. What she was, whatever, let's say, very loose. And there's a shaila from east. There's a shaila from Michshel Rabim. What do you do? Omar Baye, Ilav, the Omar of Yehuda, Omar Shmuel, Kol Meshame Avdoi, Kol Meshachra Avdoi, even by say, Hava Kaifinale Lamora, because of Logita Lechusa, the Cherusa. I would force her master to free her. But because it is a say, I'm not going to do that. Ravino Omar, he called Moida Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Milsa D'Isur. Rabbi Yehuda is Moida, that there's no problem, you're allowed to free because of Milsa D'Isur. So the question is how this works. If you're taking and working on the premise of the Rosh that the het is because of Dechia and mitzvah derabim is Deicha, what's the heta? L'shachre mishum milsa d'isur. So maybe the Rosh learns there's a separate inyan of michshel derabim. Since she's mufka, and it becomes a mitzvah derabim. The Gemara Moikotten says, because of the Pnei Iver, Chai Bezen v'hosim michshel derabim, mitzayinin al kforos, and you mark the kforos that the kohen should know. It should know that it's the tumor. And Abai says, you know, maybe it's a michshel. So kilo, there's a michshel derabim. It's a chiddush kilo michshel derabim. It's kilo like a mitzvah derabim, and it could be derech. We don't know exactly what that means. But the amazing thing is the Rosh doesn't talk about this at all. He quotes the shtickle in brachos, and he says there that it's mitzvah derabim. He doesn't talk about Shifra there because the more in Brachas doesn't talk about Shifra. The more he talks the mitzvah of Rabban. That's what he quotes. It's an interesting observation, and nothing more to say than that. There's another case where you're allowed to Meshachar an Eved, Mishum Mitzvah Kain Divrei Ames. That's a more Gittin Mem Aleph. Ki Oser Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Misha Omar B'Shas Misa Plonis Shivchosi Koras Ruach Oser Soli As Yasel Lo Koras Ruach. She was nice to me. Be nice to her. Koifin as a Yoshim V'Oisen Lo Koras Ruach Yimeshachra. My time mitzvah kind of yames. So again, according to the Rosh, they were limited mitzvah rabbim. What does mitzvah kind of yames have to do with anything? It's not mitzvah rabbim. So I would suggest that the het is not mishum dechia in the case where mitzvah kind of yames, and it's not the pshat that the mitzvah kind of yames is doiche the Aseh of shicho. But here there's an isa to use the eved in eved because the mitzvah kind of yames is also a nachruach. So you're not, the father wanted her, she shouldn't be a servant. So then what the Gemara is mechadish, that the isa of shicho is because he's meshubah favoida. But this eved, which you can't use favoida, there's no isa shicho. It's not a dechia. The Toisa Rosh there, Lamed Chesam Beis and Gittin, shiny hosam shekva poka mimeno shibud dein hayoshin rashoyin lishtabei bo. That's exactly what I said. The mitzvah kain divrei ames v'lokrin beilolomem tavodu. It's not that there's a techiyah or it's a beautiful vault. It's because the mitzvah kain ames, the shibud is poka. If there's no shibud, you can't be oived with the eved. So Mela, there's no Isa. The Isa is because the little mem tavoida. Now, the Ram Mishneh Torah talks about this in Hilchos Avodim Perek Tes Halachah. And he assumes, not like the Rosh, that you don't need mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Even mitzvah d'Rabbanan is good enough. Even though the Rabbanan is also not a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. And that's the Pasha Gemara Gittin, that the Gemara Gittin says that because of mitzvah you can mishachar. And Rabbi Eliezer was mishachar because of mitzvah, not because of mitzvah d'Rabbanan. And l'cheira, it's a double portion that a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, which is not a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, which is Tamu Rishus, should not be Deicha mitzvah d'Raisa. So therefore, I would assume I'm telling you what we know is in a negative sense. It's difficult to say that the Rambam would take the position or subscribe to the position of the Rosh. Okay. Okay. You also have to ask yourself in Dechia, maybe, are you kafir? I mean, you can imagine Dechia means that the question, can you imagine Dechia in a Rishus? That you have the right to be mashlim a minion. So I'm not sure exactly the Rosh which way he would go, but he doesn't say anything about it. So I certainly can't. Now, that's the first approach to Rosh. It's a Dechia and a Mitzvah Mizdeicha. Maybe Michshol the Rabbin is also a reason. Maybe it's a Mitzvah the Rabbin. Maybe it's also a Deicha. And everything is Mitzvah the Rabbin. Mitzvah Kaimis Ames. The answer is no Shibun anymore. So everything fits in according to the Rosh. Now, the Ramban in the Asogas of this mitzvah and also the Chidushi Ramban in Gittin Lamed Ches Omid Beis, the Ramas Rod Yamin mitzvah shiny in his first teretz, because the second teretz he has a different approach. The Ramban says that the Isa is to give the Eved a matnas chinam. But it's difficult to say that he's referring to the ashora of matnas chinam, because the Isa matnas chinam, the lav of is only to a guy who's over Avodah Zarah. And Bemis the Rashba is the Kasha, Rashman Gittin, Allah Mechesem Beis, Tivir Masachod the Amin and Mitzvah Shiny. He assumes the Rabban that it's an Isa matnas chinam. So he says you'll have to give matnas chinam leger oichel nevelis. And Ever Knaini, who is not over the Zola, but is kvar toval and is mixes gerus, certainly there's no isa matnas chinam. You'll have to give him tzedakah b'mokom hatzorach, as the Ram says in Luchos Avodim, Perik Tes Halacha Zayin. So what one would say in the Rashba with Ramban that the Isa Shicho is the Meshachre the Eved the Tovus Eved, but if the Shicho is the Tovus Odoin, there's no Isa, and that's what he means. Chinom, it means as for the Eved, but if it's for the Bailim, there's no problem. And the Rashba in Gittin there interprets like this, but he assumes the Ramban. This is not the Pshat Ramban, but you probably, I think you can interpret the Ramban like that. One could imagine, we'll see, one could imagine that the Rambam is also like this. That you don't need a mitzvah rabbim and mitzvah rabbanon enough. So maybe the answer is that it's not for the Eved, it's for me. Or when I mashachir the Eved, the ship Canainis, it's for me that there shouldn't be a michshol. And I can even do a mitzvah kind of mace. I'm not doing it. You can do it because of the mitzvah, and you go. But the mitzvah in Ramban, it's not because of tchiyah. But since mitzvah kind of a mace, I'm doing it for myself to be kind of mitzvah, not for the Eved. So it's not matnas chinam. The most interesting thing is there's a Ran. And this Ran I found amazing. And I want to suggest a pshat Ran. You'll see what you really want us to accept, and that's up to you. The Ran understands that the het shichla eved from the, even though there's an Aseh of Tavodu, so he learns that the Alolam Tavodu is not a mitzvah gemura. Mamash modern the lashon. It's ki'ilu well defined. He's just telling you what it's not. They're not telling you what it is. It's not a mitzvah gemura. Gemura doesn't make the words. Ain't a mitzvah gemura. The Ran on the rip in Gittin. Chof Omebeis in Dapi Alif. Tiva Mascho. Kol Meshachre Avdoi Uiva Basei. He says, Mashma the Labasei Gomohu. The Gemara Pachinon Meisvei Mais. It's not, it's the Gemara, it's Mashma, it's not Aseh Gemara. Doesn't tell you what he's saying. Gemara says Meisvei. Ma'aser b'Eliezer shenichna lebeis haKnesses v'limotza shom asora v'shichler avdoi v'ishlim l'asora u'mefarkinon mitzvah shiny v'aseh gomohu. If it's a bona fide aseh, heichi dachinen aseh shabatera mishum hay mitzvah. Okay, so he says he says what it's not, but he's explaining why it works. He says he disagrees with Lush. It wouldn't work because of Dechia. If it's a real assay. But if it's an assay shade of Gemur, then it can work, whatever that means. And it's not the Ramban or the Rashba that the problem you can have to do L'tzorch Odin, not L'tzorch Eved. There's an issue of Gemur and Eno Gemur. The Etzem Isa is L'tzorch Eved. Here it's not L'tzorch Eved. So we have to know, what is the Ran talking about? What does he mean that it's not a mitzvah Gemur? And the Isa, even though, what do you mean it's not an Isa Gemur? It's Bo and the Gemur and telling the Gemara. There's the Chanisa Deraisa, the mitzvah Gemur, not mitzvah Chanisa Deraisa. So I want to suggest that the Ran learns, like the Rambam, that the mitzvah is not a regular mitzvah, but it's a shrana, and it's a din. And the Ran holds that in mitzvah regila and amal, you require a mitzvah deraisa to be doicha mitzvah cheres. But in a mitzvah which is not gemura, you could be matir with the kiyum mitzvah d'rabbanan, and maybe the Rambam is like that also. In other words, it's only a din, and since it's only a din, and you can be matir. You can be matir even because of mitzvah rabon. That's why the mitzvah shena gemura. It means the din. That's what I would suggest. It's a chiddush. Olam is a chiddush. Okay. So again, the three pshatim. One pshat is the het is a het of tchiyah, and that's the rosh and mitzvah derabim. The second pshat, Ramban, Rashbo, that it's the tzorch, the isu the tzorch evet, not the tzorch adoim. And the third pshat, the Ran says the mitzvah shena gemura has different dinim that it can be nitche even for mitzvah derabbanan. The suggestion was the mitzvah shena gemura is a shram. Okay. Okay. The Ramban here in the Hasogas on Aseh Reish Lamed Hey, and also in the mitzvahs Shesilek V'Hoisif, he takes a double portion. This takes this assumption and accepts this assumption that there are two mitzvahs here in Minyan mitzvahs. The mitzvah say Sholosh Shachre Eved Ivri Eved Knaini, and a mitzvah l'shachre Eved Knaini tachas einoi v'shinoi. If you look at the Ramban, and this is the important point over here, this is what I'm mentioning the whole thing. If you look at the Ramban, the impression you get is that the mitzvah of l'olam b'em tamodu is not a shrana, but it's a mitzvah. It's a normal mitzvah with a kiyum, because he contrasts it to the Yitzir of Shem V'ayin, which he calls the din. And that's what he writes. And l'chayr, it means that it's not only the Aseh. He says that Stavinu does, and he says, and we also the Shachar. So l'chayr Stavinu to be boy, it means that there's a you should be doing something with it. Ulefi daiti sheshtei mitzvahs hein. Shestavinu shenavu beknani leolam below the Shachar Isai bechinam. You should do this and not that. So the there's an Isa say, and the Kiyum say. So that means it's an amaze. So it means, and the Ramban doesn't have polemics with the Ramban about that, because his issue is not about how you define mitzvahs, but the main issue the Ramban is interested is in the minyan. And the difference in minyan between the Ram and the Ramban is whether you count in every k'nani two mitzvahs or one mitzvah. That's what he's talking about. There happens to be another machlokes whether Evet K'nani is a din or it's a regular mitzvah of the ben tavodu. I'm just suggesting something now. I don't even want to talk about it, but I just say it in short that it could be that if you're of the opinion that the mitzvah is a mitzvah gemura, it's not a mitzvah gemura like the Ran, and there's a kiyum over here, and it's a bona fide mitzvah. So the whole discussion of the Gemara and the Rosh's opinion, mitzvah the Rabbim, and the Rabbonon, and it should be Deicha, the Ramban might find very difficult. At least in the first teretz. Second teretz, he talks about the Reis of Kiddush Hashem or whatever, or the Kaddish Minyan, something. He seemed to say something interesting. But whatever it is, it could be that since there's a bona fide mitzvah and a bona fide of Lolam Mem Tavodu, a bona fide Isa Aseh, the only way out of it that there should be a het shichra to Mashal Minyan is you have to redefine what the Aseh is. And that's what the Ramban's trying to do in the Rashba. And that's the second mitzvah, the mitzvah of shichro from shein after shein ve'ayin, aber le'inyan hazeh hu din min adinim shestavinu l'shalech el le'eved k'na'ni shichro kufay b'dmei einoi v'shinoi. Now, here is a side point. I thought it's amazingly interesting. We can, there is, if you look in the Ramban, in Nasogas here, in this mitzvah, he compares Shein V'ayin to Kiddushin Begit. And the question is, what does he mean by the comparison? Ukamo Shanisuin V'Hagerushin Shtei Mitzvos, Hanisuin V'Hagerushin Shtei Mitzvos, Kain Elu B'Shavat. It's an exact equation. The mitzvah of Lo Mem Tavodu is equivalent to Kiddushin, and the mitzvah of Gerushin, whatever it is equivalent to the Shichur of Shein V'ayin. So I can't say that I understand the comparison exactly, but you'd want to say that the Ramban's of the opinion that Gerushin is a din, and it's a din like the Shichur of Shein V'ayin. And Gerushin is a din, not a regular mitzvah. And it's just a din where you mafkir the issues. And the Shichur is kilu din that you meshachre the other K'na'ni tarazein of Shinoi. But then you would conclude on the in contrast, Hachzokas Eved is a mitzvah gila, and Kiddushin or Nisuin. And fakert, the Ramban learns that there you could have imagined a mitzvah on Kiddushin without Nisuin. But he says that if you make a bracha chatzi mitzvah, the Kiddushin is only completed with Nisuin. Then you make a bracha mitzvah. So you see, I can't imagine you made a bracha kilu on a din. The Chiddushei Ramban in Ksuva Zayin Amud Beis. V'oid shafilu chupa deraisa, kiven shachupa v'kiddushin einoi naaseh b'bas achas v'chatzi mitzvah naases b'kiddushin chutz levorech aleihem mekadosh Yisrael shekol mitzvahs levorech aleihem oivel asiyasa v'ilu hoyisa chupa naases achshav v'chule v'chule. So that I just thought that the comparison is interesting. We're comparing Kiddushin and the Suin to be Machzik and Eved K'nani. Both of them is a Kiyum and a Mitzvah Gila. And Gerushin is Afkor. And it's a Din. And so is the Shichra L'Shem B'Ayin. I wouldn't have said anything, but the Ramban says that the equation is exact. He says b'shavah. Okay, next mitzvah. HaMitzvah sheish shloshim mosayim. He shetzivonu bedin chovel b'chavero. Chovel b'chavero is the din. V'hu amor yis'aleh b'chiv anoshim v'hiko ish es re'ehu v'zu aniko dinikos. Okay, good. So there's a din called chovel b'chavero, and that's a mitzvah, minyan mitzvahs. And the Ram says, "K'vabo hakosuv shehu koilel dine kloshes kulam. V'am yis'ale kasher osa kei yoseh loy. V'oitze bezeh sheyilkach mimamoinoi tmuas ma shetzia roy lefi shir shetzil lechaver." So the sound Moshe Bar Kabbalah Vafilu Lo Hoye Ella Bishoy Levad Inehu Yiklas Kavono Yiklas Lamoina, because it could be more than one. So what do you have over here? You have Sam. We'll see about Shevis and Beish. We'll go through the Pesukim B'Neder, but there's a Chamisha Dvorim of Chayvel. And somehow Chayvel is a mitzvah. So, since it's, let's just talk about some things. It's very difficult to understand what's going on without some background material. We'll try to go through this and see what we have. Okay, first of all, the mitzvah, this din, the shirana, is a mitzvah of the payment of the Adam HaChovel B'Chaveiro. And you pay for the Tashlumei Chabura. The Rambam is going to say, V'zu Nikodine Knossos, we swear. So, but if you read it at first glance, he says, Ukva Kosuv Shuhu Kilo Kol Dine Knossos Kulam, you would assume that it's referring to Kefil and Dal Hey, and it's a general mitzvah of all different types of Knossos. The Rambam has the mitzvah of kefil and Daled V'Hei as a separate mitzvah. Mitzvah Reish Lamed Tes as din aganav. So l'cheira, when he's talking about the knossos that we're talking about over here, that the knossos the tashlumei chabura, all the different types of tashlumei, all the different tashlumei chabura. There are 5 types of tashlumei chabura, and this is the list: nezek, tsar, ripui, boishes, v'sheves. So what the Ram is saying over here in Minyan HaMitzvos is that all these different sugim, all the 5, are all knas, and also sheves and ripui. Because sheves and ripui are learned from the pasuk in Chiyuv and Anoshim, the first pasuk the Rambam quotes, which is the makor of the mitzvah. So l'cheira, sheves and ripui are also knas. But the Rambam is mefurish in Mishnah Torah that only nezek and tsar are knas. But sheves, ripui, and boishes are momin. The Rambam in Hilchos Chayvul Mazik Perek Hei Halacha Zayin. And the Rambam here seems to be taking a whole different approach. And that all the 5 Tashlumei Chabura are all knas. So is the Taka Machlekes with all 5? The Rambam here says all 5 are knas, and the Rambam Mishnah Torah is saying only 2 are knas. So this is what we like to think about before we move on. The main difference between Momen and Knas that we know about is Moed Knas is Potter. And if you Moed on a Chiyuv Momen, you're Chayiv. And that's the Chiyuv Hodos Valdin. The Rambam here in Minyan HaMitzvos in the Sefer Chinuch, who also says all 5 are knas, doesn't mention this idea that they all be chayiv moed knas. So we have a statement, we don't understand the ramifications of what the Rambam is talking about, that it's a knas. What I would suggest the following: that there are 2 separate definitions of knas, and all the Rambam is doing is saying that even though, and there's no machlokes the Rambam Mishnah Torah and a Minyan HaMitzvos, And the Rambam basically saying in Minyan HaMitzvos that as far as the definition of Knas, of Moed B'Knas, it's a double portion, that only Nezik and Tsar have a P'tur Moed B'Knas. But there's another din Knas, and that's the Rambam learns, we'll see exactly where he gets it from, that you need mumchin. And without mumchin, it can't be done. The Mishnah, the Ram Pirush Mishnah, Ram Pirush Mishnah in Baba Kama Periches Mishnah, Pirush Mishnais, Achol B'Chavero, Oin Din Koma Shehu Chayiv, Sheves U'Boishes V'Ripui B'Tzar U'Knas, V'Koilin HaKol V'Goyve Min HaChovo V'Pamachas V'Yifto Im Hoya Hadin B'Eretz Yisrael Im Hoya Chutz La'aretz Minadin. So you see that the Rambam says that the Chamisha Devarim require mumchin. That's what he says in Pirush Mishnah. That's what he's saying is the Shem Knas, they require a somuch to be done. A somuch ish v'pi Moshe Rabbeinu, smichas Moshe. The emphasis is the following. You see this idea in Mishnah Torah that there's a new definition of Knas, that even though there might not be a P'tur of Moed B'Knas, but there's a definition that Knas requires Smuchim Mumchim. The Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin, Perek Hey Aloch Ches, Dine Knossos, Kagoin Gzelos, Dine Knossos, Kagain Gzelos v'Chabolos, Chabolos Dine Knossos. So it means all Chabolos. And Rambam himself says Moed B'Knas only applies to Tsar and Nezik. So what the Rambam is doing is saying that as far as Dine Knossos, Kagoin Gezelis v'Chabolos, Tashlumi Kevo, Tashlumi Abo v'Chamisha, Goin is Mafata Kietz Bohen, Ein Don Oisam El Shloisha Mumchim. They need Smuchim. Beheim Asmuchim B'Eretz Yisrael. So the Rambam learns is a Shem Knas they require Smuchim, and there are different Shem Knas in terms of the P'tur Moed B'Knas. The Rambam, I think, took this idea from the Mishnah. The Dine Knossos Kagoin Gzelos v'Chabolos, because the Mishnah in the beginning of Sanhedrin seems to say that Gzelos v'Chabolos, that's what's talking about, requires Smuchim, and Hodos v'Avolos are not. And comes the Rambam and says, you know why? That you don't know where he got it from. You know why? Because they're Dine Knossos. Yeah. Next. So that's exactly what we said. That even since there are two dinim, two types of two separate sets of dinim by Knas, there's a Knas of Moed B'Knas, Moed B'Knas is Potter, and there's a Knas that requires Smuchim. So the Ram learns that the Chamisha Dvorim are Knas only as far as they require Smuchim. But as far as moed b'knas, only nezek and sal are knas. B'shevet ripui u'boishes amomen. And the Ram was Chayvul Mazik Perik Haloch Hazayin, and look at them in the Chasinuch and Mitzvah Memtes. Okay, so we did a lot of work, we made a lot of progress, but we're still not there at all. There's still a lot of difficulties around. And this just, to understand, just clear the water before we got started. There's only an introduction to the mitzvah. First problem. The Rambam, in this mitzvah, for some reason, talks and explains at great length this idea of knas in tashlumi chabolos. And l'chera, this whole issue is not the etzema mitzvah of tashlumi chabolos. The mitzvah is to pay whatever you pay, but that it's knas or not knas, l'chera is not an important issue in the Rambam Minyan mitzvahs to talk about. L'chera, it's only protei mitzvahs, and that's l'chera not the point to talk about this. And this issue, you could have talked about Tashlume, they didn't Ganav and Tashlume Genev, you could have talked about other places. So l'chera, it's not protei part. It's not even a protei mitzvah of Chabola. You could have imagined it's a din in Bezdin that certain mitzvahs Bezdin requires smuchim. You require Bezdin of smuchim. Maybe you could assume it's in the midst of Sanhedrin. The Minchas Chinuch, see the Minchas Chinuch, it's a tough Sari Aleph. But this whole discussion and the emphasis on Knos is very odd. Next. The Rambam here in Minyan Mitzvahs seems to explain the issue of Knas in Odom HaChovel Behema and Behema B'Chovel B'Odom, and maybe also Behema Choveles B'Behema, and which is in the Sefer Chinuch, the Shaila we see in the Giyas and the Rambam this mitzvah. We have to understand this. Why the Ram talking so much all about different other classes that are, or puts this into Chovel? What is the Behema and Odom? I don't know. We'll see as we go on. And another problem is you can't imagine shluchasayu in anything to the get all the tashluma mentioned in this mitzvah, because the mitzvah didn't require mumchin. If you don't require mumchin, then you talk about that they do shlichus. So we have to understand that also. The more Vakama Pedal and Beis, he's ready to accept the shluch. The Ram Mishnah Torah has his problems, and it seems to learn differently. We have to look and talk about it. We never. So whatever it is, the Ram says, he shetzivonu b'din achovel b'chaveiroi, and this din is a shrana. Ram Sivon Zeshran. That's in the Judy Arabic. L'chera, when the Ram says he quotes the pasuk Rivan Anoshim Vihika Ish Esraelu B'chule. He just doesn't mean this beginning. And the B'chule, the B'chule means the whole parsha. V'chrivan Anoshim Vihika Ish Esraelu Be'ever o Be'egloy V'lo Yomus V'nochol Mishkov Im Yokum V'hishalech B'chutz Al Mishantoy V'nika Make Rak Shifto Yitain V'rapi. He needs this point. He's quoting all this. The beginning, he means the pasuk afterwards, and he means Shevis and Lipui. And that's why Ibn Tibet has V'chol over the Goyme of V'chule, which we don't find in the various Kisveyad. And the next, l'chayra here, we say kasher osa ken yose lo, which is tashlumi chabura. Boishes is a separate pasuk. In Shmos chafal chapeis to chapei ki notzo anoshim v'nog fu isha horo v'yotzu yololeho u'yaso in loshi anesh kashe yoshis olov baal hoisha v'nosim b'flilim v'imosim yiyeh v'nosat nefesh tachas nefesh ayin tachas ayin shei tachas shein regel tachas rogel kviya tachas kviya petza tachas petza chabura tachas chabura. And the Ram in Hilchos Chovel Mazik in Perek Aleph Halacha Beis Nezek Ketzad Sheim Kota Yad Chaveiroi Regel Loy Nois Kilu Ever Kani and Ever Ninchu B'Shuk Ever Ninchu B'Shuk Kamu Yofa V'Chulei Shenemar Ayin Tachas Ayin Mishmil Lomdu Shezeh Shenemar Tachas Loshen Momin. Who? And Salam Boishes, we'll see later where the Ram learns it from. But the Tashlumim of Nezek is learned from Pashas Mishpatim. Okay. In Mitz Hashem, we'll pick up next time, and we'll discuss Mitz Hashem, I guess, as we are lots or not, whether it should be on Chol Hamoed Sukkos or it should be the Monday after Sukkos. Have Chag Sameach, and should be zeiche to dance in the don't say I'm like that, not we should dance and be sure Ruach HaKodesh. Mitzvah Shem.